Hello and welcome back to Mansfield Ceramics Gallery here in Darlinghurst. We're delighted to introduce you to another exhibition that we're having here. And this exhibition is a monograph by the Queensland artist Johanna Maine. So first and foremost, welcome Johanna here to Darlinghurst with this beautiful body of work. And perhaps we can go back a few steps before we actually talk about to the body of work here and ask how you you first became involved in ceramics. And I know we're going to go back to the 1970s here.
Yes, well, I started in 1971 by default.
Mm-hmm.
I was an ex-high school teacher, totally disillusioned with high school teaching. Felt that it wasn't my profession, quit the job on the advice of everybody around me,
Mm-hmm.
and started helping my husband in the butcher shop, which was a new career. But somebody said, come along to ceramics. Nah, can't do that. Yes, you can. No, I can't. By the way, I skipped every craft lesson at Teachers College. So I went along, did the thing of putting my thumb to the pinch pot.
Yes.
But I still went back. And I think it was about 2 lessons and it grabbed me. It was adult ed classes in Gladstone. And from that point on, it sort of became an obsession.
Yes, we all understand that.
It is an obsession. Or my compulsive, whatever disorder.
Yes, it was channeled.
Channeled.
Yes.
Yes.
I understand. And but where you are now, I know a few decades later, is creating these very unique pots. So I'm going to ask you, and I know it's always a difficult ask, you went from there when you first started with your little pinch pots to these amazing, amazing vessels that you now create. So did you go and have some formal training?
No, I don't come from a background of formal training. Gladstone didn't have formal training, and I outgrew the adult ed classes very quickly because I got my own wheel, my own kiln, and having done a lot of research in the past with my education, I felt that the only way I could learn was to go through the books.
Wow.
And I availed myself of the Flying Art School when it came to Queensland.
Yes.
Met some stunning people who I'm still friends with, Vic Greenaway, Kevin Greeley, Bob Hinwood. They all came through the Flying Art School, and we had such a wealth of talent to draw on just by observation. And
Gosh.
and I just craved to learn.
That's actually, I didn't realise that, Johanna, and I'm fascinated by this story.
Yeah.
So amongst all of these great mentors and friends, where did Gustav Klimt come in?
Well, Gustav Klimt came in, funnily, through Janet, actually.
Right.
I was bemoaning the fact that I wanted to get a job teaching, and I couldn't get a job teaching because I wasn't qualified enough for TAFE. I didn't have the pieces of paper. But I was a high school teacher.
Yes.
So Janet suggested I go and see Owen and do the graduate diploma course as a bridging course.
Right.
Which I did. First attempt, I postponed it because Ted was sick.
Yes.
And he went on for 26 years with his condition that he had. And then I went back a year later and did the course with Rolly Drysdale, Len Cook, Peter Wilson, Barbara Campbell-Allen, Lynn Griffiths. Now I'm getting a bit sparse. Oh, Bobby Barwick.
Wow.
So we had quite an interesting time, and it was actually, I was doing colour in salt glaze. That was my first thing, and then I changed to doing colour just generally, using underglazes with being influenced by Matisse.
Okay.
That was the extent of my knowledge at that time, and it was actually Owen who suggested, have a look at Gustav Klimt. And that's where the lustre came in, and the gold came in, and then I sort of became obsessed with that.
And what about the symbolism, though?
The symbolism is all very personal, very personal. It's the mountains. They're floating everywhere because my boys went to Mullaney High School, and inevitably we'd have to either take them up or pick them up, and if it's a foggy day, the mountains are just floating.
Right, okay.
I grew up in Maroochydore, which is just a stone's throw away, and the sails are symbols of the beach, my childhood. So it's a very complex symbolism, but I do lots of little ladybugs, my bugs, but I won't go down that path. That's a very personal statement in there, but no, that's people in general. So you can read anything you want into that.
Anything you want into that. Look,
I generally call them my lemmings.
Okay. I'm now going to ask you about this exhibition, which is titled
Sailing the Unknown.
It's a provocative title.
It is.
It's a profound title, if I may say, as well.
Yes. I have done all my work at this point with the Lusters on the idea of beauty, the sublime, sailing the sublime, sublime beauty, variations thereof. And I was trying to think of a title for this work. And I also have been invited back to Kuruku Kiln, that's Happy Lucky Arita, for the months of September, October, November, to teach a workshop, have an exhibition, collaborate with the factory. That's pretty unknown territory.
Yeah.
Very unknown territory. Okay. I also have done this whole exhibition by myself without Ted's support. He was everything. He was my backstop, he was my muse, he was my husband, we were married for 47 years, and it's been a devastating 2 years without him. And I honour him in this way too, by doing this, because it is an unknown thing that I'm now sailing along by myself, without his support. But I've managed to do it, well enough, I hope. But I've pushed it forward in different regions as well.
Yes.
And also I'm entering a new relationship, which is an unknown relationship as well, because Tetsuya is a Japanese master potter, and we're going to be collaborating, and we're going to generally share our life between here and Arita, which is like a fairy story.
Look, it is like a fairy story, but it's, I think I said to you earlier on, it's just so deserved, and it's just wonderful to see your happiness. And I'm not the only one, but there are so many of your friends around the world who have watched your life take this turn as it did 2 years ago, but to see you come out the other side. It's a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing.
I think so. Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm really excited what the future can hold, because with both our skills, I mean, Tetsuya is a superb thrower and glazer and basic knowledge and everything like that, and I have the very high-end skills of the overglazed decorating.
Yes.
We can make a formidable team. Now that is a plug.
Excellent. And it's lovely also that commonality in any relationship that you have, this thing of interest that you both so enjoy.
Well, Ted was actually a potter as well.
Right.
I converted him from being a butcher to a potter.
Did you really? Well, I did wonder, because I had actually heard the butcher shop story before somewhere, or maybe it was in my research. And so he actually went from there.
Yes.
And to make
we actually
pots.
lived off making domestic ware from 1981 until, it must have been well after the 90s, the end of the 90s.
Right.
And then his health became such a problem that he couldn't.
Yes.
And then I decided I can't do this by myself, and I needed a new direction, and I was just doing the one-off work, and I was going to teach at tertiary places.
Yes.
But that story, and I'm glad I didn't now. Well, I did for a year at the University of Sunshine Coast until they canned that, but I had the opportunity to finish a BA that I started a long time ago with computer-based art and design.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I have learnt how to manipulate images and use them for my work.
Yes.
And
And if we could just talk very briefly about your technique, which is, it's so elaborate and so wonderful. And so could you just talk
Yes, yes. Basically, I work with porcelain, southernised by preference at the moment. I will take that up to top temperature and glaze it accordingly, using mainly the one glaze nowadays. And then I start doing things to it. Originally, I was just using luster and doing a lot of resist decoration using a janting.
Right.
Which is the Indonesian tool for hot wax.
Okay.
And because I was never a brush person, we tell ourselves stories all the time. So I used that, and I got a whole good body of work going. Then in 2005, I had Hodgkin's disease, so I went through chemotherapy for that, which left me with neuropathy in my fingers. I couldn't grip,
Right.
which was quite devastating. So I was determined that I was going to keep on working, being pig-headed enough that nothing was going to ever flatten me. Yeah.
Excellent. Lucky for us.
And I had been interested in doing the matte and shiny gold that they do with in the high-end dinnerware that they used to do. In 2001, I actually had a Churchill Fellowship where I was hosted by Royal Dalton in England.
Is that how come your work ends up in the collection of Queen Elizabeth II?
No.
Oh.
No.
Right.
That's almost a mistake on the New South Wales government
Okay,
part.
right.
I'll tell you that one in a moment. Anyway, I was interested in the matte and shiny gold, and I didn't want to go down the path of using acid as they do in industry.
Yeah.
And I had seen that glass workers etch their glass with sandblasting. And I thought, well, glaze is glass. If you can do it with glass, you can do it with glaze. So we did.
Brilliant.
I bought a little sandblasting outfit and graduated as I learnt more. But I just researched the internet with all the glass people who also helped me, and I understood a lot more about compressors and pressure and grit and all that. And worked on it. And now, I sandblast. Okay, step back. I glaze, then I'll put the basic layer of luster on, be it gold or mother of pearl or whatever colour I'm interested in. Then I'll collage with vinyl resist. Okay. And this vinyl is the same vinyl that they use for sign writers. Okay? So to cut it, I taught myself how to use a vinyl cutter, a plotter cutter.
Right.
And I just connect it to the computer, and the computer does the talking to the cutter, and it cuts it out beautifully.
Johanna, okay.
It's just my bent, I like pushing boundaries and doing things.
It's wonderful,
That way, because nothing's ever static, and if we don't bring our art or craft into more contemporary times, it'll die. But if we can utilise it without bastardising it, should I say, then why not? It's there to be used.
But such an enormous amount of skill, therefore, goes into each of your vessels. But you don't see it. But it's not. It doesn't. It's not. They're not. I see. You can see things that appear heavily processed, etc., etc. That these vessels don't have that. No. There's still an organicness about them.
Yeah, I think because I don't sit and do them in one go and get obsessed about each piece.
Right.
I work on about 4 to 6 pieces at a time, like a painter does, and then they have to go into the kiln and be fired. And then the next day I work on the same pieces again. And so I'm getting cross-fertilisation of ideas at the same time and not just focusing on the one.
Yes.
I think that could be the reason, but then sometimes I go overboard.
As we all do. And I just want to mention before we come to a close, your son Tobias.
Well, I have 2 sons, actually.
I know you do.
I cannot single him out. I have Carlos is the elder by 16 months, and he was the more active sport person.
Yes.
We encouraged Tobias into the art. And instead of going to soccer, he would go to drawing lessons as a young child.
Yes.
Which he wanted to do.
Yes.
And he did a Bachelor of Visual Art and usual art student against the world. Ended up doing it in multimedia because he didn't like the painting teachers.
Okay. But now has taken out a major ceramics prize.
Yes. After Ted passed away 2 years ago, he came down to stay with me and keep an eye on me. He lives at Agnes Water. We lived in the same place for about 2 months, and I suggested to him that it would be better if he went closer to work because I didn't want to become dependent on him.
No.
I was dependent on Ted.
Yes.
And I had never lived by myself,
Yes.
so I had to learn how to do that.
Yes.
So we went and saw Rolly at Quixotica, and Rolly said, "Hey, come and stay with me." So he did, and they did for about 6 months. And by that time, he had already made his mind up that he was going to be a potter. He told me that at home. He just looked at the studio and said, "I'm going to become a potter."
Oh, that's lovely. Johanna Germain, it's so lovely to have you here. And can I say that you are sailing into the unknown with such spirit, such grace and such beauty. Thank you very much indeed for exhibiting with us.
It's a pleasure.
And we encourage everybody to come along and see this fabulous show. Until next time, thanks very much.